Hello. Today we'll be talking about Black history with Johnson Lancaster today on The Bernie Hayes Show. And welcome back. From the Progressive Emporium Bookstore and Learning Center, we have the man who runs it all, Johnson Lancaster. Johnson, welcome back.
Well, thank you for having me, Bernie. It's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to see you. Johnson, you're so full of so much history, man. And this is February. This is Black History Month, African American History Month, Negro History Month. What's the Progressive Emporium doing?
We are continuing to provide a place where people can come and learn about the vastness of the culture and history of the African diaspora. Mm-hmm. Wednesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 6 at 1108 North Sarah Street.
Are you having teaching classes at all?
We do have a schedule that we're going to be putting out soon for the rest of the year.
Okay, but they can call you. What number can they call you?
314-875-9277.
Say it again.
314-875-9277.
They can call that and get the information, the calendar dates and so forth, what's going on.
Yes, they can.
I love the learning facility that you have. That classroom looks like a regular classroom, man, but there's so much African American history surrounding it. Who came up with that idea?
Well, actually, Mama Frances Jernigan left us her book collection.
Okay.
And so we had to find a place to put it. So we had that room. That room was empty at the time. And we went ahead and put her book collection in there. And we renamed the room the Mama Frances Jernigan Reading Room.
Beautiful.
We're actually revamping that room now. We're going to do something different. But that's what we use it for quite a long time.
Johnson, you're an Afrocentric, and a lot of she's speaking Kiswahili. How did you come into what they say consciousness, more or less, about your spirit and your history?
I was fortunate. My 4 brothers and 4 sisters and myself had some enlightened parents. My mother was a school teacher, and my father worked for the city in the comptroller's office, but they were both well-educated at a black university, Xavier University in New Orleans, and they did things for us, like we had lots of books when we were growing up. We had encyclopedias. They cultivated our curiosity. We had chemistry sets and microscopes and telescopes. They made sure that we exercised our mind. So I would say what happened was I started paying attention to what was going on around me. And I remember when Martin Luther King got assassinated in 1968. I'm 9 years old, and I'm sitting there with my homework, watching riots on the television. And I said, wow, what is this about? So my own natural curiosity kicked in. I started to do research. And my brother, Siddiqui, who's a drummer, African drummer, but he introduced me to some people at the Rowan Community Center, where Jamala Rogers and Kalimu Ndesha, Kujaliwa Hukumu, Thadi Majaliwa, they were friends of my brother.
Okay. And
they started directing me to other information. So in quick succession, I read Autobiography of Malcolm X, Message to the Black Man in America, Black Skin, White Mask, a collection, anthology edited by John Henry Clark, was called Harlem, Voices from the Soul of Black America. And my mother had a book, Black City Politics, which is mostly about St. Louis, even though they cover, Cleveland and Newark and Detroit, Cincinnati. But most of the book is about St. Louis. So this information, I'm also reading about the Black Panthers and Angela Davis and Revolutionary Action Movement and Marcus Garvey, and all of this is coming to me at an early age. I'm 12 years old. And it was just eye-opening to me.
Yeah.
And from there I was like, well, this is where I'm supposed to be. You know?
When did you discover that most of these history books taught in public schools were lies, not truths or misrepresentations?
Because it didn't add up. Mm-hmm. You know, we're being taught certain types of history, mm-hmm. and I'm like, well, if that was going on at that time, and you know, this person was around at this time doing these things, and I'm not hearing about them at school.
Something's wrong, right?
Right. So I'm actually augmenting what I'm getting in the classroom, you know, okay. at home. And so I was fortunate in that regard, in that we had access to the information. Sure. I think the main thing that really set it off for me and set it in stone for the rest of my life was learning about the 7 principles,
okay.
the Nguzo Saba,
yeah, okay.
and that value system. And this was, you know, around the time when the Black nationalism, Black cultural nationalism,
and Maulana
Karenga,
yeah.
and the early years of Kwanzaa.
Yeah.
So that value system, the 7 principles of Blackness, that really, for me, was like, this is exactly the foundation I've been looking for. And
the Nguzo Saba.
Yep, and I'm going to use that, you know, for the rest of my life. I encountered that when I was like 15 or 16.
Wow. Okay.
And so I said, this is it. He's my North Star. This is my North Star.
Sure, taking you to the promised land. The books that you have in the Progressive Emporium Bookstore and Education Center, Dr. Ben, Dr. John Henry Clark, Chambers, everybody. I mean, you just surround yourself with all this knowledge. And how do you get it to the people? How do you get it?
How do we get it to the people?
Yeah.
Well, we do a lot of promotion. Mm-hmm. Okay. We do collect people's addresses and, you know, physical addresses and email addresses, okay. And we send out postcards and bulk emails. We have a Facebook page. Mm-hmm. We have an Instagram page. We use social media. We have a YouTube channel. We have a couple of websites. So we're taking advantage of the technology we have access to. And then we're using some traditional means, like you and I having this conversation here. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we send out press releases.
Okay.
So
how can they reach you?
Well, they can certainly come to the Progressive at 1108 North Sarah Street.
Well, that's right off of Finney, right?
Between Cook and Finney.
Between Cook and Finney. Yeah.
And we're there Wednesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay.
Or they can call us at 314-875-9277. Or they can send us an email, progressiveemporium@yahoo.com.
Johnson Lancaster is my guest, and we're talking about African American history during this African American History Month. And we'll be right back in just a moment.
As we feel the darkness pressing in upon us, both personal needs and needs in the world, society as a whole, it's easy for us to get depressed. And when we're depressed and negative and feeling hopeless, we're not going to be able to help anyone. That's why I daily have to draw strength from the Word of God. That's why I have to go on walks in the midst of the wonders of God's works. And that's why I have to be able to see something that's worked for many, many years in my life, is that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever, that He's with us always, even to the end of the world, and that we can be a light, letting His love and power flow in us and through us in a cold, dark world. There are people hurting out there. There's people that are crying out to God at this particular moment in the midst of their desperation. Can we be led by the Holy Spirit to them? Can we believe God to reach out and let His love flow through us and by faith help them meet their needs? That's the challenges that the Lord gives us in His Word. Experience the joy of really helping somebody else and letting the light and love of Christ shine in you and through you.
Martin Delany was born an African-American abolitionist, the first African-American field officer in the U.S. Army, and one of the earliest African-Americans to encourage a return to Africa. Delany was born in Charlestown, Virginia, now West Virginia, to a slave father and a free mother. His mother took the children to Pennsylvania in 1822 to avoid their enslavement and prosecution brought on by attempting to teach her children to read and write, which was illegal in the state of the time. In February 1865, after meeting President Abraham Lincoln to persuade the administration to create an all-black corps led by African-American officers, Delany was commissioned a major in the 52nd U.S. Colored Troops Regiment. With that appointment, he became the first line officer in U.S. Army history. When Reconstruction began, Delany was assigned to the Freedom Bureau in South Carolina. There he called for black pride, the enforcement of black civil rights, and the land of the freed people. Martin Delany.
It takes many partners to operate New Life Evangelistic Center. We're a large ministry operating and serving so many people all throughout Missouri. And so we appreciate so much Bernie Hayes and his many years of dedicated service to people who are experiencing homelessness all throughout Missouri. But we need people like you to partner with Bernie Hayes and with New Life Evangelistic Center to make a real impact in the lives of people who are hurting now. In a very practical way, you are being the hands and feet of Christ in the streets of St. Louis and Springfield, Missouri, and beyond. So I want to thank everyone who is partnering with New Life Evangelistic Center. I want to challenge you to get involved today for the glory of God and the good of others in our community. Thank you so much, and God bless those who are making a big impact on the lives of hurting people.
Welcome back. We're talking to Johnson Lancaster of the Progressive Bookstore and Learning Center, and we're talking about Black history. Johnson, you says a lot of Black history has to do with St. Louis. What's the theme of this year's?
The Association for the Study of African American Life and History always has a theme for each Black History Month.
Okay.
And this year the theme is African Americans and Labor.
Okay.
So now that's a very rich history in St. Louis.
Tell us about it.
Aside from the fact that we provided free labor for quite a long time.
Yeah. Enslaved people.
After the Civil War, we got involved in the burgeoning labor movement in the United States, and began to organize Black workers. So now St. Louis has a really, really good tradition, legacy, and heritage of Black people who have been involved in labor. Now I'm going to fast forward. A guy like James Wilkerson, who was in the International Union of Operating Engineers, is a co-founder of the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists. He just recently passed in October of last year, but he was a pioneer. Yeah. Then you have Ora Lee Malone of the Amalgamated Clothing Workers, who also became the international president of the entire union, and she's here. She was here in St. Louis. Right. You have Ernest Calloway of the Teamsters, who actually started out in the United Mine Workers when he was working in the coal mines in Kentucky. But when he moved to St. Louis and met his wife, DeVern Calloway, and they were, to me, they were like one of the early Black power couples, because she was in the state legislature. And he was the chief researcher for the Teamsters, Local 688. And his research, his demographic and statistical research, was used by activists here to push for equality and equity. Okay. The information he gathered helped Percy Green and Action push for greater employment opportunities for Black people in the Jefferson Bank boycott. Yeah. With Jim Wilkerson, a member of the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists, was part of that. And William L. Clay, who was a member of the Laborers Union, while at the same time being with the NAACP, he was part of the Jefferson Bank boycott too. But he comes out of the labor movement.
Yeah, Norman Say also was.
Norman Say, another
Jefferson Bank. Yeah,
another one. Yes. So you have this rich history in that book, Black City Politics by Anderson, he says it was an alliance between black labor leaders, black professionals like teachers and doctors and lawyers and black clergy that organized a groundswell of activism in the city and helped make a lot of change. As a matter of fact, the labor union guys learned about politics in the labor unions, and then they joined the ward organizations and began to take over the ward organizations in black neighborhoods. So black labor leaders have played quite a role in moving black people forward in the St. Louis area.
Now, what is Progressive Emporium doing to promote the Black history? This month, I know you do it every day of the year,
right.
actually.
Well, this month, if you come in and give us the name of a black historical figure, we have a discount for you. We have 20% off your purchase.
Okay. So I came in and said, Jordan Chambers, you give me 20% off?
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting, you mentioned Jordan Chambers. He was at a time right after the Civil War, black people were mostly Republicans. And some of the famous Republicans are, Martin Delany, Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth.
Yeah. And they were Republicans because of the Emancipation Proclamation.
Right.
And Abraham Lincoln.
Right, because Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
And, he was supposed to be the great emancipator.
Sure he was.
We could talk about that at another time.
Yeah, that's a whole different show.
Right. Yeah. But James Milton Turner and Moses Dixon were both here in St. Louis. They were members of the Underground Railroad, and Moses Dixon formed the Knights of Liberty, which was a clandestine freedom-fighting group whose members fought in the Civil War. James Milton Turner helped resettle people that were leaving the South. They called them refugees, black people who were leaving the South to escape the war. And they would stop in St. Louis, and James Milton Turner and Moses Dixon would give them food and shelter and then help them move west. So there's that history too.
Yeah.
And James Milton Turner also, he got the governor to give him some money to open up a lot of schools, to address literacy among the black community.
I learned that Old Halls Ferry Road and New Halls Ferry Road. Halls Ferry Road was a road for the Underground Railroad also that
absolutely.
Yeah, our prisoners of war used to escape.
Yeah, and I mentioned that most black people were Republican until the 1930s.
Yeah.
1937. During Reconstruction, Rutherford B. Hayes betrayed black people with the Hayes-Tilden Compromise and ushered in a wave of terror, white terror among black people in the South, and the beginning of what we know to be Jim Crow.
Yeah.
Yet we stayed with the Republican Party for another 60 years. But here in St. Louis, as part of a national trend, when Herbert Hoover was president, and he was a Republican, you had black Republicans like Jordan Chambers, George L. Vaughn, Homer G. Phillips, Joseph W.B. Clark. They helped move black people from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party in 1937 and helped elect Franklin Delano Roosevelt as president. Later
1933.
I'm sorry, 1933.
Yeah. Okay, there's so much to learn, that you have so much knowledge and you have so much history in print at the Progressive Emporium. What are the hours again, Johnson?
11 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Monday through Saturday?
Wednesday through Saturday.
Through Saturday, okay.
Wednesday through Saturday.
So what's the importance, in your opinion, that people learn this history that you're teaching?
Well, if you don't know where you are coming from, you don't know where you're going. What happens in the past informs the future. You need that groundwork so you know what your roadmap can be as you move forward in time. John Henry Clark says that that history is a map. No, actually says that history is a clock. Mm-hmm. If I'm paraphrasing it properly.
Sure.
History is a clock by which black people tell the time of their people, and it's a roadmap for what leads us forward. Okay. So I'm paraphrasing, but he's very wise in that regard.
Yeah, John Henry Clark. We got to talk about him on the whole.
That would be a completely different show, a whole show just on him.
Right. We're 2428 Woodson Road in Overland, Missouri. The New Life Evangelistic Center, where Reverend Larry Rice has been providing services for those in need for more than 53 years. I'm Bernie Hayes. Johnson Lancaster will be back with us in just a moment.
New Life Evangelistic Center is celebrating 53 years of service spanning the globe. Yes, God is doing a mighty, mighty work, and we want to share with you the New Life Soul free paper. It's absolutely free of charge. You can write and get a free subscription and request a single issue in this case, and then get it from now on at P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri. That's 63166. And you can receive the paper totally free also by calling 314-421-302. There are so many different articles in here that will inspire you. Coming live in 2025, up to dates about India, taking the hand of a hurting person, Jesus, the troublemaker. You can go on and read in here and be inspired, challenged, motivated, discover ways that you can make a big difference to helping the hurting and the homeless in our community. And if you'd like to get a bundle, drop by 2428 Woodson Road in Overland, Missouri, or 806 North Jefferson in Springfield. They'll give you a bundle so you can share it with your family and friends. But get the New Life Soul free paper now.
Today's featured guest, A. Philip Randolph. Leader and social activist, A. Philip Randolph was born on April the 15th, 1889 in Crescent City, Florida. During World War I, Randolph tried to unionize African-American shipyard workers and elevator operators and co-launched a magazine designed to encourage demand for higher wages. He later founded the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, which by 1937 would become the first official African-American labor union. In the 1940s, Randolph's abilities as an organizer had grown to such lengths that he had become the driving force in ending racial discrimination in government defense factories and desegregating the armed forces, both done via presidential decree. Becoming involved in additional civil rights work, he was a principal organizer of the 1963 March on Washington. A. Philip Randolph. He died in New York City in 1979.
Behind me is the New Life Evangelistic Center administrative offices in Overland, Missouri. And this is where we shoot our shows for our worship shows and the Here's Help Network. And it's also where Zakid Baroudi and Bernie Hayes shoot their shows. You can find all of these shows at the New Life Evangelistic Center app, the NLEC TV app. You can also access them on your tablet or on your computer. And this is how you can stay up to date with all the things that New Life Evangelistic Center is doing. There are so many different programs that we've got going on, and God is doing many exciting things through partners like you. So if you want to support the work that New Life is doing, then please access and give through the app. You can go online at nlecstl.org or give us a call at 314-421-3020. Again, 314-421-3020. But this is the best way to get plugged into the amazing work that New Life is doing through people like you. And so there is something for you to get involved in today. And we are so thankful for our partners. Only through the grace of God and your gift are we able to bless others today.
Welcome back. My guest is Johnson Lancaster of the Progressive Bookstore and Education Center here in St. Louis, Missouri, on Sarah. And Johnson, is there anything we didn't talk about or you want to mention before we leave?
All right, I'll put another plug in for Progressive.
Sure, please.
We're open Wednesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 6. You can come and visit us at 1108 North Sarah Street.
And that's between Finney
right between
and Cook.
Cook and Finney.
Okay, and then their Page.
We're about 4 or 5 blocks south of Page.
South of Page, yeah. Okay, that's good.
And 4 or 5 blocks north of Delmar.
Right, okay, so right in the middle there.
So right in the middle.
Sarah and Finney used to be a very famous corner.
My father had a tax preparation business on Sarah.
Really?
Between Cook and Finney. And there was a Sarah Merchants Association, Sarah Finney Merchants Association. Yeah. And there was a lot of black businesses along Sarah.
When I first came here in St. Louis in 1965, Sarah and Finney was a bustling corner.
Bustling. I remember that.
Yeah.
Bustling area. It had two movie theaters.
Yeah.
The Comet, and I can't remember the other one.
Churches and a whole bit. So tell us about, before we have about 4 minutes left, tell us about why they should come to Progressive Emporium or what they'll get.
Well, Carter G. Woodson, when he came up with Negro History Week to celebrate the accomplishments of black people,
right,
and it eventually morphed into Black History Month. What he wanted to do, he said there were missing pages of history, and that he wanted to include them. So Black history is American history, and that without that information, it was incomplete, and that everybody needed to know. Yeah. That the country needed to know what those accomplishments were, and how they inform what we now know as United States of America and world history. So he didn't just do it for us. He did it for American society.
Okay. That was Negro History Week, and now it's African American History Month.
Right.
Yeah, and that's under attack also from the current administration, I understand.
Well, in their short-sightedness and their narrow-mindedness, they want to remove those celebrations from federal agencies, as well as try to remove a lot of black middle-class professionals from federal agencies at the same time. And a lot of the government workforce, federal workforce, is African-American.
Right. So they can come by Progressive Emporium this week, and you said this month, and they said they've named an African American figure. They get 20% off.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Tell us just some of the titles that surround you each day.
John Henry Clark's Harlem.
Okay.
He also has a book, Africans at the Crossroads.
Wow. Okay.
Then there's Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams.
Okay.
Francis Cress Welsing's The ISIS Papers.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And of course, we do have multiple titles by Carter G. Woodson. Most famous one is Miseducation of the Negro.
Miseducation of the Negro, yeah.
But we also have African History and Heroines. African Heroes and Heroines by Carter G. Woodson.
Okay.
And there's a couple other titles by him also.
Okay. Dr. Ben, anything on Dr. Ben Yakinen?
Multiple titles. Africa, Mother of Western Civilization, Black Man of the Nile and His Family, African Origins of Major Western Religions. Those are three that come to mind.
Okay. The one question I want to ask you, oftentimes you greet other people and respond in Kiswahili. Why?
Well, the greeting, Habari Gani, means what's the news?
Sure.
And then the reply is Nzuri, which means everything's beautiful, or Njema means everything is fine. Swahili, the East African language of Kiswahili, is spoken widely, not just in East Africa, but as originally designed as a language of trade and diplomacy. It was meant to take you all the way across the continent. Most widely spoken language on the continent of Africa.
We got to wrap it up. Tuta Nana,
Barney.
Thank you so much, Johnson. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Asante.
Sikitu.
Thank you. And thanks each and every one of you for supporting the New Life Evangelistic Center with 2428 Wilson Road in Overland, Missouri. Johnson Lancaster, once again, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure. So much knowledge. We're grateful. I'm Bernie Hayes, and support the New Life Evangelistic Center, 2428 Wilson Road, Overland, Missouri, where Reverend Larry Rice has been supporting you for 53 years. I'm Bernie Hayes. Have a great day.